What's going on, guys? This is the 5 Yard Pass podcast, bringing you another episode to preview the weekend's fixtures. My name is Suddy. This is Sham, and just give us a like and subscribe. And for everyone who's watching and commented, we appreciate it. Sham, we'll be talking about it's the halfway point in the season. Basically, we've hit game 19. We hit game 19 during the midweek, and it's all downhill, I guess. Few big games, man. I think we'll start off with the big one. United Arsenal at the Emirates. Arsenal United, at the Emirates. United coming off really an embarrassing loss. They didn't turn up. Sheffield did turn up, and they just couldn't match the energy of Sheffield. Arsenal coming off spectacular, finding 6 games in a row. Is it sharp? Yeah, it's about 6 games in a row they've won. They're definitely the inform.
Yeah, they've won 6 of their last 8 with a draw in there as well. So
that's insane form. But don't forget that United, besides the loss, United have come on also excellent form. I think a loss shouldn't, your last game shouldn't be your weak point. So Sham, we talked a little bit about in the last video, but I think we said we wanted to expand on how we think Arsenal will line up and how we think Arsenal could beat United, because I think United do go into these favourites just because they have been really good this season. They've topped the league for a few weeks, and they could go on top again this week, given some results. So yeah, talk us through that. How do you think Arsenal will line up today?
It's interesting that you've got Arsenal as favourites, Man United as favourites. I'm not so sure about that. Like, if they are, it would only be marginally.
I'm talking on paper favourites.
Yeah, and it's take out United's loss. They've actually been in a pretty good run of results. But yeah, Arsenal they've been adopting the Arteta has revolved between sort of that 4-3-3, which is more of a 3-4-3, which is more of a 3-4-2-1. And in the last few games, he's gone to the same sort of shape that United seem to use as a default shape, that sort of 4-2-3-1. They've done actually quite well defensively recently. So they've only conceded 3 goals in their last 8 games. If you consider that sort of FA Cup game against Southampton, given the players they're rested, they've almost seemed to have written it off. And they conceded an own goal there. So it's really sort of 2 goals in their last 7 league games. So it's quite an impressive record defensively. Eleno has actually been playing really well. And they seem to have got the issues sorted out with the 2. In the last video, you talked about Xhaka and Partey, the Xhaka party that's been forming at the base of that midfield there. And their fullbacks, Tierney I don't think he's playing against United. He's been an important player for them. He's added quite a bit, I think, from that sort of deeper position, and more of that sort of modern fullback. So they will go to Cedric. They will play sort of the 4 at the back. David Luiz is there, which is interesting. He tends to get a lot of headlines wherever he goes, but he hasn't really been doing that this season at Arsenal. It's given his history, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Just given who he is, it's probably a good thing if he's not getting attention, because he does tend to get a lot more attention for mistakes, particularly when he's playing bad. He's the type of player where if he plays well, the good performances just seem to keep coming. But if he's playing badly, the bad performances just seem to be coming. So they'll line up that way. They'll have sort of the 3 up front. I think Lacazette's probably their form player. I think 8 goals so far this season. The wide players will become very important. Saka is on the right, and then Emil Tudad's in the number 10 position. I think they're going to be kind of the key players for Arsenal. Arsenal do have the ability, I think, to cause United a problem or two because of that sort of front 4. United, the midfield has been very strong, and I think the midfield's kind of been the key to the really good run. Bruno and Pogba, but whoever's come in, Matic has been good when he's been in. Fred and McTominay have been good when they've been in. That's probably been United's strength in this run. The forwards have been good, but they were better last year. The defense, not. You give them a pass if that. They haven't really stood out. But I think that United's ability to sort of dominate the midfield against that 3 of Arsenal with Partey and Xhaka, there's going to be quite important to this contest.
I think they've that's to your point about Xhaka and Emil Smith-Rowe and like I said up front. Excuse me. Who plays on the left for Arsenal? I'm just blanking right now.
Yeah, I'm blanking as well. It's actually quite a poor player.
Is it Nikita? No, Nikita plays up front.
But
I want to get this
Alston's
before I
review had
start.
Pepe. Alston's review had Pepe on it.
Pepe, yeah, Pepe, yeah, of course, it would be Pepe. But I think United have come head to head with various versions of that this season. I'm talking about the PSGs. They did well first time, didn't do well the second time. Liverpool will be a version of that. These quick, skillful front threes. United have generally seemed. Now, this is a very, very kind of broad statement. I think in the last 20 games or so have generally been defensively okay. But what they've been defensively good at is they seem to be able to nullify specifically counterattacks, I feel, in the last few months or so quite well. I think that's what Arsenal may or may not be looking for because I say may or may not because Arsenal, I think, will have more of the ball. But if I were to say, oh, a goal is going to come in a certain way, it's going to be a counterattack because I don't think Arsenal pose much of a danger on set pieces, which is where you think United are going to concede. If the United I know will concede through individual errors as they have for the last few months. And these individual errors it's quite sad because I think they don't quite reflect how good the defense is. I personally think Maguire, I'm convinced by Maguire this season. Last season, I wasn't so much. I think if you put the right guy next to him, and I think that right guy is a Bailly or a Bailly type.
Maguire, yeah. I mean, we still, to a degree, apply the Van Dijk sort of measurement to him, don't we? But he is definitely better than last year. And considering he had a shocking start to the season, on and off the field, he's growing. I don't think he's an A grade defender, but he's a B to B plus. You know what I mean? Like you get what you expect from him every week, and that's really all that you can ask of him.
Yeah, and if and to that point, what I was going to say was if United are prone to an error, I think Arsenal are prone to 10 times worse errors defensively. Sure, they've conceded 2 in the last. Well, let's see. I'm just quickly going through here. They've conceded 2 in the last 6, like both of them against Southampton. One of it being an own goal, to be fair. But who they played? West Brom, Newcastle, Palace, Newcastle again, and then 2 Southamptons. Of those, the goal threats are Southampton, and they've conceded. So I'm not saying Arsenal haven't sorted out the
Southampton. Like I'm a big fan of Southampton, but they've had a few people out. They're missing Vestergaard. They're missing Romeo. I forgot how to pronounce his name. Romeo, the Spanish.
Romelu Romeo,
Kyle Walker-Peters. Like they've been missing some important players. Southampton. They're not at the moment the same team that's been doing really well this season.
I think straight up, I think Arsenal are going to be tested. It's going to be a bit of shock and awe because as well as they've been playing, they haven't been playing against good opposition. So I don't think it'll be as interesting as we think it's going to be. I think it's going to be quite straightforward. I think United will take the win, just purely because this is Arsenal. This is a step up in their form. I mean, I just want to go see who their next 2 games are. Do you have it in front of you by any chance?
Arsenal's next games. We talked about it in the last video. They've got an absolute nightmare run. Like
that's right, they do.
11 to 12 games are absolutely shocking. It's a lot of big teams, and you mentioned just before that they had a bit of an easier run. When you have an easier run, it tends to be followed by a harder run.
Yeah, and since we thought they were going to get relegated, they haven't. Besides the Chelsea game, which we did discuss, we thought they played like really fabulously. They've had Brighton, West Brom, Newcastle, and so on and so forth. We said it before, and they have an absolute nightmare run starting with United. I think this really it'll test the kind of.
So I'll read out the next 2 fixtures if you like.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So after United, Wolves, Villa, Leeds, Benfica, City, Benfica, Leicester, Burnley, Tottenham, West Ham, Liverpool. So
they play Benfica. The game's so hard they named the game twice. Benfica.
It's an interesting one, Benfica. It'd be funny to see what they do in terms of first 11, second 11, that sort of thing, because you can't reasonably expect. I think only City and Liverpool could reasonably expect to put their second 11 out against a Benfica and expect to get a result. It'd be interesting to see how they prioritize that, given that it might actually be their only chance for Champions League football next year.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into
with the City game in between. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That kind of leads us into the United game, and it's a point we wanted to kind of flesh out a little bit. So I think we can pretty much say who's going to start for United. I think you and I, we'll get to the point we want to talk about in a second, but I think it's going to be De Gea. I think Ollie did say Bailly's back fit, so it's going to be Bailly, Maguire. Very likely going to be
Bailly
Wan-Bissaka.
is quite important if he's fit because Arsenal have pace. So if he's fit,
absolutely.
he'll play. Yeah.
And then
Tuanzebe wasn't that great last time out.
Yeah, and then the midfield is going to be a variation of a Bruno Pogba, Fred, Bruno Pogba, McTominay. I don't think Matic will play this game. He's not the kind who can play 2 in a week anymore. And then the front three is going to be a variation of the 3 of the 4 boys who play up front. I don't think Martial will play. I think
I have a feeling they'll go for a diamond. And
okay, why is that?
I think that Arsenal will try and press, and I think United having more options in midfield will help with the press. I also think it enables them to play Cavani up front and not sacrifice pace. You can put like Cavani and Rashford up front, for example. I think that the get out against the press might be just a thump at Cavani's chest and get him to bring it down. And then bring in the pace and space of guys like Rashford and Pogba. And Arsenal don't have threatening fullbacks. With Tierney out, the fullbacks aren't really going to get a lot of attention from United. I think it's better against Arsenal, given that they've got Holding, who's not really... Holding's a bit like Tuanzebe for United. He's in and out. And David Luiz could have a mistake in him, particularly playing against someone like Cavani, who's all here, you know? So I have a feeling
don't forget they were teammates. They were teammates in the past.
Sorry?
They were teammates in the past. Don't forget that. Cavani and Neil
PSG, yeah. So they'll be training against each other day in, day out, won't they? Yeah. So I think that David Luiz, PSG, £50 million for David Luiz. Anyway, sorry, I digress. I have a feeling that it's going to be that diamond, just stuff the midfielders in. And I think when you play Fred and McTominay and Bruno, you got to find, and you want to play Pogba, you got to go for the diamond. And I think that the energy of Fred and McTominay, and I think it was why Matic played against Sheffield United. I think their energy that they bring is going to be useful against an Arsenal team that will play with a lot of energy and vibrancy like they have the last few weeks, at least to start off. I think in regards to a result, you talked about results. I do think whoever scores first will win. So the cutting out of the individual mistakes, as much as United have come back a lot from positions where they've been behind away from home and they have an incredible away record, I don't see them, if they go behind, being able to win the game. I think Arsenal's defense is a bit too solid, and I think Lino's in a really good run of form. So I will go with United, but I would put that caveat that whoever scores first will win the game.
Now, Sham, Chelsea bought David Luiz for 25 million, sold him for 50. Sham, that wasn't the stupid part. It's when they bought him back for 34 million. Bought him back. I mean, obviously, we all remember they bought him back. I didn't realize it was 34 million. And then Arsenal bought him for 8.
Did they buy him back after that performance? Because that game, the Brazil-Germany game, right? 7-1. Like, that was on him. Like, Thiago Silva in the quarterfinals of that World Cup got a yellow card, the stupidest yellow card I've ever seen. Goalkeeper catches a corner and he just slaps the ball out of the goalkeeper's hand. They were 2-0 up after 70 minutes against Colombia. And he was just frustrated and he just slapped the ball out of the goalkeeper's hand. Ref's gone yellow card. He's suspended for the Germany game.
Thiago Silva.
Thiago Silva got suspended for that game. Like, and you're just thinking, oh God, they're gonna lose. I just remember thinking they got no chance against Germany. I didn't expect 7-1. No one did, but
I think no one did.
Yeah, but that's on him. Like, sorry.
No, that's fine. I was gonna say something. So, I lost my train of thought there a little bit. So. No, I was just making fun of David Luiz. That was my whole point. Look, I think he has a mistake in him, and I hope to see United kind of bounce back before taking on next week, which is a relatively easier run of form after Arsenal. The problem is Arsenal had been a bit of a bogey team, and I completely agree with you with the press. And that's how they beat us the last time. They were hungry. They were exciting to watch. I thought it was the start of something big, and in fact, it was the start of a huge downward trend. And I'd hate to see Arsenal go into any sort of dip in form again. And unfortunately, we're likely to see it with the games coming. But I personally think it's going to be 2-0. I think United are going to score fairly late on in the first half and then close the game out. What I would like to see specifically, we've come to the point we want to talk about, but what I would like to see specifically is when they do play diamond, I find that Rashford and a bit more Fernandes play these free roles, which I kind of enjoy watching. So I think that's probably up for discussion in the next video if he does play diamond. What I do want to discuss,
diamond would be interesting though with the fullbacks, how the fullbacks, United's fullbacks get into the game.
Well, do you know, statistically, apparently United's fullbacks have created the most chances, most key chances, or most chances, or something like that. Expected chances, I don't know, of all Premier League defenders. Sean Wan-Bissaka specifically, and Telles is one of the highest per game, but he doesn't play much. But it's still a good point, and that does bring us to the point we want to talk about. Luke Shaw versus Telles. You asked me just before we went online who would I prefer, and I said in current form, I kind of like Luke Shaw. I think we're seeing glimpses of what United bought him 6 years ago for. I got the feeling that you think the opposite.
It's an interesting one because we both watch the Stephen Housen page, and he's been accused multiple times of having an anti-Shaw agenda of being against Luke Shaw.
Yeah.
I don't think that he does. I think he just doesn't rate Shaw, and it's okay to not rate someone. It's different to not rate someone as opposed to having an agenda against them being in your team. The different things. That Shaw is playing well at the moment. He's not Trent Alexander-Arnold or Robertson at his best, at their best. Sorry, he's not playing at that level. But you can see through the season the levels of his performance have been going up. He's not mindlessly charging forward as well. He's sort of being a bit more considered when he moves forward. He's staying in wider positions. Last season, there were often accusations of him underlapping as opposed to overlapping and creating width, particularly when Bruno and Rashford seem to run into the same channel. David Luke Shaw run through the channel as well. It can get a bit counterproductive. He's a very good defender one-on-one as well, which I think is not really rated well enough. He can take on like wide wingers, particularly like left-footed right wingers that cut in a bit, like guys like Mahrez, and sort of shut them out of the game.
He did well against Salah on the last Sunday. He did very well against Salah, actually.
Yeah, and like that's like to say he did well against Salah, but he shouldn't play. I mean, you have to have something wrong with you to like, as in like Shaw. There'd have to be something wrong with Shaw to believe that he shouldn't play, even though he can mark Salah, who's probably the best in his position in the world today, and he plays in the same position as Messi. So the thing about Shaw that worries me is, one, his susceptibility to injury, which he seems to be okay with at the moment. Two, I do think his positioning is quite poor. And I think that his communication with Maguire is terrible. There's times where Maguire basically just looks at Shaw. Like you can see his body turn 90 degrees and he's looking at Shaw, or he runs to where Shaw should be. There's a lack of communication and trust between those two, I think. I think it seems to be more that Maguire doesn't trust Shaw as opposed to the other way around. And he seems to go over and create these gaps. Like the goal against Fulham was a good example where Maguire goes to kind of where Shaw should have been. So if you're Maguire and you're the club captain and you got this guy next to you don't quite trust, it can create a problem in the defense. And I think it's to do with Shaw's positioning. He just seems to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. I think Telles is not quite yet trained in the United system. He's only been there 6 months, and he also got COVID. And I think they're keeping an eye on him just because of the COVID. Paul Pogba took a long time to recover from COVID. And I think they're keeping an eye on Telles just to make sure that he is. We've talked a bit about Statman Dave and how he's done his analysis and how he's gone into the United team. He actually wanted Telles in the he was one of the guys who picked Telles if you look at his sort of signings for the new season type of thing. Telles he's a proper old-fashioned fullback. He's got a bit more of an attack. When I say old-fashioned, I mean an old-fashioned Brazilian fullback. He loves to attack first, defend second. He's good with the ball. He looks like a footballer.
Few goals in him every season as well.
Yeah, and he's got that whip of a cross that adds a lot of options to what United do. I don't think United have the right winger fully to take advantage of it, and I don't think he doesn't seem to have the connection with Martial that someone like Wan-Bissaka does. Wan-Bissaka seems to cross quite well for Martial, for instance. A few times that when you see Wan-Bissaka crossing for assists, it always seems to be to Martial. So there's a balance there. It's interesting. I do actually think like Shaw is the better player at the moment, but only because he's in better form. I actually think that Telles, despite the fact Telles is older, I do think he has a high ceiling. Shaw's ceiling seems to have been lowered by his injuries. And it would be interesting to see how that works. And it might even be once Telles gets in, Shaw moves over to being a left-sided centre-back, because it's almost as if he gets his positioning sorted out, he could actually make a pretty decent centre-back. He's actually 6'1", which is not like when we were growing up, you had to be 6'3", 6'4". I'm 6'2", and I was considered short for a centre back in that area. You needed to be 6'3", 6'4". Nowadays, you do get 6 foot centre backs. Jamie Carragher was 6'1", so he's about the same height as Luke Shaw, and he had a good career playing centre back. So I think that that might be the way it goes. But I do, like I said, I do think Telles has a high ceiling, mainly not so much because of his age. I just think that he has more of an ability to adapt and get used to English football in terms of if he gets the game time, he'll adapt. He'll figure out which teammates he can move and jink and work with. He is a compatriot of Fred. I think that connection could be important for him, just to get on the ball.
I think it's a good point you make.
And that ability to set up goals as well, I think is, I mean, the reality of modern day fullbacks is they need to either know how to attack or know how to help others attack.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with the COVID. I've never actually thought about that, but they did look at Pogba and say, if we rush it back, this is what happens. We get a patch of really bad form, and it's not good for the player. Just it's not safe for the player. That's the end of the day. That's what it was.
These guys are elite athletes. They're not like me who might get to the gym 3 times a week if I'm really paying attention. They put hours of work into their body every day. They're on so if they lose even 1%, that's a lot for them, and it takes them a lot to really get back to full fitness. It's not like us. If we play amateur football on a Sunday and you twist your ankle and you're out for 2 weeks, you get back and you're back within a week or so in terms of getting to full fitness. Like, these guys are so finely tuned. They're not worried. They're quite worried about the long-term effects of COVID. And I think I know within United they're paying a lot of attention to Pogba and Telles just to try and monitor and see if there's long-term effects of that. And I'm sure every club, particularly the clubs that have a lot of COVID cases, are really paying a lot of attention to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if COVID did anything but Pogba, he's in the form of his life, of his United career at the minute. So, so just give me a prediction, Sean.
I'll just, when you touch on Pogba, I know it's a comment, but maybe the club showed him a little TLC because he got COVID. Maybe that's all he needed. Maybe he didn't feel loved. He does strike me as someone who does feel a bit like he needs to be loved.
Yeah, I didn't get a cake and Pogba got COVID.
Yeah.
Look, I'm excited for the game. We do have to move on to the next game, but like you said, so you think it's going to be United win. However, the caveat to that being who scores first would probably
win. If score first, they win, but I think United will nick it 1-0.
Myself, I think it's going to be a straight up 2-0 win. I think it's going to be a very tough game for United, but I think 2-0 win for me. Let's move on to the next game we wanted to talk about was the West Ham Liverpool game. Lots of talking points in this game.
I think this is the game of the round. I'm really looking forward to this one.
I think the consequences for it is one thing. The next thing is the football that is being played by both clubs are phenomenal. We went on for about half an hour in the last video about West Ham, so we'll dial it back a bit.
Did we?
And we'll do something. No, just saying we did talk a lot about West Ham, and how the stuff they've been doing. But just really quickly, before we do get to West Ham, we want to talk about the centre-backs, the Liverpool centre-back problem in a minute. So the 2 big ones are out. They have been for months. No, there's no sign of them coming back anytime soon. We've got Matip out and Fabinho's now out as well. Now, the 3 options Liverpool have, the 2 of the 3 they can pick or potentially go with the back 3, which is unlikely for Klopp. The way they press, going for a back 3 just spreads them out to the thin, is the 2 Williams, Nathaniel and Reece Williams and Jordan Henderson. Now, if I was a betting man, I'd say Jordan Henderson is going to push back into that role. However, if there's Sam Allardyce, who's the opportunist of the century, there's David Moyes, who's tactically better than Sam Allardyce, but with the same kind of ideas.
Yeah, it
could be a very messy day for Liverpool tomorrow. West Ham might be playing the best football they've played in 30 years, and I've listened to a few things on TalkSport, excuse me. West Ham fans calling in saying, just reliving the 80s. They said they can't believe West Ham's was ever going to play football like this again. There's an argument for Souček and Rice being the best centre midfield partner in the Premiership just by pure form. And they're both very good players. I don't think they'll stay at West Ham very long if they don't win trophies. I mean, it's going to be messy, man. It could be messy for Liverpool just because of what's on paper. And as we said, and just one last thing, Sham, as we said before, as Henderson comes back, now you have, not only do you have less understanding in midfield and less press in the midfield, you also have less understanding at the back with a whole new person. You saw what Nathaniel Williams did against United. His mistake directly led to Rashford's goal. So yeah, sorry, go on.
No, it's a very valid point. I mean, the way West Ham have risen this year, last year this game was 1st versus 16th. It's now 4th v 5th. and West Ham are fourth, not Liverpool. So their rise is very commendable. And yeah, you get the feeling it's a Moyes team who play high tempo. They pass well. They got a bit of snarl to them as well. You know, there's a lot of good things going on with West Ham at the moment. It's quite an important game for them for two reasons. The first one being, as good as they have been, they've not really had a big result against a big team. They've not, like that United, they lost. They haven't City, they drew, but they're still figuring themselves out a bit. And City weren't playing particularly well. They've not gone out and beaten a big team. And if you're looking at Liverpool right now, you respect them because they're defending champions. But when you find that probably their first four choices in the squad for centre back are not playing, that's a huge weakness. Any club, I don't care who you are. If you walk into a club and took out their first four choice centre backs, they're going to be struggling. Alisson becomes really important, as much for what he does when he hasn't got the ball and he's communicating with the defenders. I think that's going to be really important. I think the way, particularly it's an away game, that Alexander-Arnold and Robertson move forward, and the way that the midfield protects the defense, because there's going to be some protecting needed, I think that becomes very important as well. And I wouldn't rule out a formation change. Liverpool when Jota was playing, they kind of went to a 4-2-3-1. So Jota would play as the 9, and Firmino would play. Firmino's basically a false 9, but he'd play in the 10 role. And then he had Salah and Mane out wide. I wouldn't rule out Liverpool trying something like that with maybe someone like Shaqiri in the hole and Firmino up front, or something just to try and pin West Ham back a bit. Sometimes the easiest way to stop a team attacking your centre backs is to have the ball and press them high up the pitch. There's danger in that because of West Ham's midfield pairing, which is a very good midfield pairing, very underrated and not gotten a lot of attention until recently. It also creates a double pivot in front of the defence for Liverpool. I think whoever plays in those deeper midfield positions, Alcantara with his positioning, I don't think Oxlade-Chamberlain would play in that formation, but someone like Wijnaldum might. The way that they position themselves, and they may be told, safety first, you protect the centre-backs. So there could be a fundamental change to the way Liverpool play. It's one thing to say you got two centre-backs out. Fabinho has played very well, but he's also outperformed expectations in terms of his ability to play centre-back. So he's kind of the bigger loss than Matip, who's a good player, but a bit like Eric Bailly, good player but never plays, you know? So it can completely change the way that Liverpool play. And while it creates a big hole, and any team's going to go at that weakness, right? Particularly given Liverpool have pretty much their first choice, apart from the centre-backs, Liverpool still have a lot of first-choice players available. So that's the obvious place that you're going to attack Liverpool. And the way that Henderson stands up to that, particularly with West Ham might end up sitting deep and hitting longer balls over the top of the midfield at the defence. So guys someone like Antonio, who's very athletic, can be quite dangerous in those situations as well. So it could very well dictate the way that the game is being played.
And on the point about Michael Antonio, what I think Michael Antonio brings, besides, I mean, this is a bit of a cliche, but he's raw power. He's fast. He's strong. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try putting mute on.
No, it's okay. We can see you cough. Yeah, Michael Antonio being physically far superior than many strikers in the Premier League. He brings a lot of nuance, a lot of cheek to any position he'd play. You almost feel he'd know what to do to get a rise out of anyone. To clip someone at the ankles.
When I was playing in Australia, we had this guy. We had a lot of central midfielders in our team, and one week we just decided to put one of them up front. He played an absolute blinder. The way he read the game, he could win the ball back and then suddenly turn into a striker. Antonio's got a lot of smarts about him and is able to do very subtle things to.
And don't forget, he was a right back. He started off as a right back.
Yeah.
3 years ago, he was a right back, and then he moved to the right wing, and he was kind of in between in the Sam Allardyce time of West Ham. He was in between that right wing. He was kind of that free role between right wing and up front, and he's become an out-and-out striker. And Moyes, if there's anyone, Moyes has been someone who's done that in the past. People like Cahill, Fellaini, repurpose them to bring the best out in himself and the team. I think it's going to be an interesting battle, man, between Henderson and
Moyes would
Michael
absolutely
Antonio.
love to have Cahill and Fellaini playing up front for West Ham. You know what I mean? Like just
It would
Cahill's
work.
aerial ability, Fellaini's Velcro ability to get the ball down from any sort of height. It would create havoc for guys who are not used to playing at that level in that position.
I want to bring up one thing, though, Sham. Now, do not forget a player that could make a difference on tomorrow against Liverpool is Jesse Lingard. Loves a big game. I'm not kidding, man. I'm not kidding. Loves a big
I
game.
remembered that he'd signed, but just when he mentioned, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's
If
signed.
let's say they get him through, I don't know what the quarantine rules are if you're going from county to county in London. I assume there's none. But let's say he does play. I don't know, man. I think
and he's played with Moyes before. He's not completely new.
Yeah, he hasn't. He never played again. He never played under Moyes. He played under Van Gaal. He played under Van Gaal. I'm pretty sure he was still at Leicester when Moyes was there.
Okay.
I have to double check that. At least he didn't play regularly. My point being, he's been known to be a big game player. Being from United, you could be. It could be important. Like let me just quickly run through what the lineup would likely be if I can ever find it. Actually, it's going to be very inaccurate, isn't it? But basically, he could slot in down as a number 10 instead of Ben Rama. West Ham, I mean, it's unlikely because West Ham have been in good form. The more likely thing is he'll come off the bench on the right, on the left.
In a sense, if Liverpool have, it depends a lot on whether Alcantara plays. If Alcantara doesn't play, remember he had his head bandaged midweek, right, against Tottenham?
Yeah.
So they lose a lot of passing ability in that space between the centre backs and the midfielders. And just Lingard's perfect for that type of game. Or he could just man Alcantara out of existence. He's kind of he's a bit of a defensive forward, isn't he? Jesse Lingard wins the ball, breaks down play, pushes players into space. He won't. I don't think he'll play 90 minutes. He's just not played enough football to really say, okay, you're going out against Liverpool. But I think that he could come out as an impact player.
Is there an argument to be said? Something I just thought about then was, is Jesse Lingard a great player under a manager who gives him 10 instructions? Because that's what it seems like, versus a manager who asks people to express themselves. I don't think the United players right now have a lot of instructions the way they did with Mourinho. Not many of them play with Moyes. I think none of them, besides De Gea, play with Moyes. So I think there's an argument to be made that maybe Jesse Lingard appreciates 10 to 12 instructions in the game, and that's how he flourishes. He did against Mourinho, man. He had some of his best football. And early years of Ollie, when people were unlearning, he was still maybe on those instructions, but he hasn't really progressed since, coupled with a lot of issues that he's had in his personal life. I think this is why he could flourish under West Ham and potentially make the move permanent, because he's not coming back to United. You're 30 years old. You're not coming back to United.
Is he 30?
When he finishes the loan next season, he'll be at the end of this season. He'll be 30.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. He's a bit of he's quite baby face, isn't he?
We still think he's 22, a youngster.
Yeah, he still looks 22.
We still think, yeah.
You expect him almost to be like Dele Alli's age or something, but
younger than Bruno, man.
The only other thing I'd say is, like, Liverpool beat Tottenham mid-December, and then they went out and spat into Crystal Palace, and we thought, okay, it's all over. They're going to win, and then they've gone on this blip. Yeah. They've gone to White Hart Lane. They've gone and beat Tottenham. If they can get up against West Ham, they would gone to London twice in a week and played top half teams and got results.
Yeah,
that would be very significant. So as much as there are problems at Liverpool because of a shortage of personnel, they still have quality. Like any team with Mane and Salah, you just can't rule them out. They're just that good, you know?
Yeah.
Like Barcelona is absolutely rubbish, but they have Lionel Messi, so there's still something about them. They're still third in La Liga. You know what I mean? Like
you saw against United. United started the game so well. The win on the weekend, but a momentary lapse. It wasn't even a lapse. It was a moment of brilliance from Firmino assisting Salah. The first goal I'm talking about. The second goal was even more brilliance by Milner stepping over the ball like that. But that's what I mean.
Liverpool proper Latte, didn't he?
Yeah, they're just so. They smell blood, and I think they got their fangs out now. You know, the general aim of the game, and this sounds very Michael Owen-esque, but they have to genuinely think about outscoring opponents because they will concede almost every game.
You just mentioned Milner. Do you reckon Milner will be important? He will play this game, and he will be important. He might even play
a game like West Ham. And now that I think about it, he's kind of a bit of a forgotten man because he plays every game, but comes on with about 10 minutes to go.
And he's 35.
But
He's been around forever. God,
he runs around like a 28-year-old, Sham. He
he's
still's got a
an
tank on him. He
energizer
still
bunny,
wins
isn't he?
tests
Yeah.
every year, apparently. That's a good point, actually. I think Milner could potentially you could see him in the midfield, shoring things up, pressing from the start, even. The last thing I'll say, I think Liverpool could be weak on set pieces. West Ham have always been known as a very big, especially this team, very big team. The Declan Rices, Mikel Antonio, Ogbonna, big boys. Liverpool could struggle to deal with them a little bit.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
then
apart
again,
from Henderson, there's not a lot of height there, is there?
no, there isn't. Especially if you think about who's coming back to defend that ship. The Shakiris, the Thiago Alcantaras. I wouldn't class Firmino as an amazing defensively good in set pieces. Maybe going. I mean, not maybe. He's definitely going forward for set pieces, but not coming back. So they definitely have to watch out there. I want a prediction, Sham, and just a general kind of idea of how you think the game will go.
I think that both teams are gonna have a massive crack. I think this. I don't think I've ever said this season. I think this could be a classic. I'm seeing a 2-2 draw. I think both teams are just gonna have a massive go. I think that it's gonna fall where it falls. And yeah, I don't see a clear winner just because I think Liverpool have that mentality. I'm leaning to West Ham mainly because it's Upton Park, but I just think Liverpool have the champions mentality, and I think that that's going to help them. This is a massive game for Liverpool. If they lose, there are teams that will jump over them, and they will. If they lose this, they can't win the title. They actually could still win the title, but I think if they lose this, I don't think they can win the title. I think there are too many games thick and fast, too many players out, too much instability. Like this is a defining game, and they are champions. They know how to win defining games. So
On that
I'm
point,
going
you
to
say
go
they
with the
can't win the
draw,
title.
but I think it's going to be a cracker.
Let's take hypotheticals. Let's say they lose and City win. That gap goes 44 to
The City will win
7
because they're playing
points.
Sheffield United, so they will be
7 points
7
with the
points
game in hand.
behind the City of a game in hand. Yeah,
It just becomes too tough. I'm not even talking about United. I think United is still in the challenge, but not in the race. If that makes sense.
yeah.
For me,
And even then, they would be West Ham would jump over them. Tottenham and
yeah,
Everton could jump over them as well, so they could be down to
yeah,
7th, and that's a pretty big fall, and it might bring a lot. It will bring a lot of pressure on the club if that happens,
yeah,
which is the last thing they need right now, frankly. So I'm looking at the table. Yeah, it's the gap to City, isn't it? I mean, Leicester, I don't think they really got much of a chance of winning the title, but I'd be stunned if they didn't finish in the Champions League.
yeah,
I think that they're consolidating themselves as opposed to making a title charge. So
yeah.
it's kind of that City and Liverpool battle, or maybe someone else, but at the moment it's kind of City and Liverpool. And yeah, if they lose this game, and you would expect City to beat Sheffield United, I don't see them coming back from that.
Yeah. I'll finish out with my prediction here. I think I don't I have to say I think you're going to see every time Liverpool's had this major kind of upset, they've come out of the gates a bit more nervous the next game. But I think they're going to win the game. I think they're going to be even more nervous than normal. I think you're going to see a very structured Liverpool. I think it's going to be 2-0, 3-1, very late goals in it. But I think Liverpool are going to win the game. And a little bit hard done by West Ham. The scoreline won't particularly reflect the game, I feel. But I think Liverpool have enough, man. I do. I think that front three. I've said what I've said about Liverpool. Obviously, I take the piss out of them, but they are the fabulous side going forward. And I think it's gonna be no different today. I think, you know, they West Ham to Liverpool is like Burnley to City. Burnley could have a game of 10 wins in a row. They go to City, they get spanked 6-0. It just happens every year. It's a given. So I think that's what's gonna happen this weekend. We'll quickly touch on the Leicester game. So Leicester playing Leeds. You wanted to talk about this. I think it's going to be a good game, but tell us why you think this particular game stands out for you.
I think that I was just having a look at the numbers. I mean, the Leicester are on a massive. They're on a great run. Leicester City. They've won. They haven't lost in a long time. I think they've gone last 9 games, 6 wins, 3 draws. They've scored 18 and conceded 6. They're a proper football team. They've gone from being this sort of counter-attacking, have everyone sit back, and then pounce at a certain moment, which is as much as as much as they did fair bit of that in the title winning season, that they're playing proper football now. And they've got this incredible mix of like if you look at the players, the 12 players who played the most game time,
Mm-hmm.
seven of them are 25 or younger. Four of them are 33 or older. So they've got these two teams, like there's young players and these old players, and the only player in the middle is Albright, is like 31. So they've got this
He's in the
mix of
game.
really
He's in the
young
form of
guys,
his
these
life, by the
really
way.
really good pros. And sorry,
He's in the form of his life. He's playing brilliant football right now, Albrighton.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's probably the only player at the club who's sort of in those best years of his career. Their ability to they do have the ability, if they can get a long-term replacement for Vardy, because the reality is you need to start thinking about a long-term replacement for him. If they can get that, I think they do have the ability to really push on a bit and sort of even crack that sort of established top six that we always talk about. I'm a big fan of the project that they're doing and how they're going about it. And despite the fact, they're a smaller city, they never won a title until 5 years ago, the death of their owner. Big fan of what they're doing and how they're going about it. Even bringing in players like Fofana, who's 20 years old, but he's had a great season. And Tielemans, that midfield of Ndidi, Tielemans, and Madison. I mean, can you name a centre midfield three that's better than that? I mean, it's
For the kind of when you say those names, I think of perfect balance. I really think of like that you can't have a more balanced midfield playing at the qualities at the levels that they're playing. Now, Shah, there's actually something I thought about there. We spoke to Neil the other day about Leicester finding that kind of silver category of players. You can't really go for the Haalands and those kind of players. But I think there's something to be said about buying a player in between that gold silver category, and I compare it to City buying Aguero 10 years ago. If Leicester go and identify someone with a bit of fanfare, could get them the goals, but not quite, people are still a bit like, oh, will he make it England? Leicester could go on to be a force, man. Like every year, people consistently predicting them to be in the top 3, top 4. I couldn't tell you who that player is right now because the market is quite stalled to go and buy these players, these kind of big players, the 50 million, 60 million. But that's the kind of player, if Leicester go and buy and replace Vardy with, two things will happen is that you might squeeze a few more years out of Vardy, that sheer competitiveness that he has. You might get 2 more 25-goal seasons, which would be brilliant. And then you go on to have this kind of this guy, whoever the guy is, transitioning on to becoming that 25 goals a year striker. And then Leicester become a Champions League team. And that's amazing. I think it's amazing. I think it's a nice
guy like a Marcus Rashford was coming through their ranks and he went up front. Like you just think, oh my God, this team has the capability to do anything. It's just missing that piece. And it's not a criticism of Vardy. The only problem with Vardy is his age. And you still play this season and impact the team. It's just I'm talking about the future and the way that club's moving. And it's so hard to get that's why people pay the biggest wages for strikers, because of what a striker can bring to a team. It's just that piece that they need.
I just wanted to really quickly, as we're finishing this up about Leicester, I'm just looking at the last time they lost was against Everton, and they just drew to Everton. As in the last game was back in the 16th of December, and they've had a few kind of aberrant losses. They lost to Fulham, okay. United lost to Sheffield. They lost to Liverpool, which fair enough. They're spectacular form. I see more greens than red, man. Like far more greens. I say greens, I mean wins versus losses. Spectacular form, and it is scary to think if they went and got a striker, if they went and got someone who will completely replace Vardy, because Vardy's now, I think he'll be out for a good while with that operation.
Yeah.
So
the hernia takes a good 5-6 weeks, and it's not something you can rush a player back from. Yeah, if you decide to have that surgery. Yeah.
So we know what Leeds is about. I think Leeds have finally found themselves to be. They are a bit of a relegation battler. I think we've all got over the tag that they're this entertaining side, because at the end of the day they're losing matches, man. And I don't think they're playing as entertaining as they had at the start of the season. Yeah. I do think they'll stay safe. I think Newcastle's have more danger of going down than they do. They just got to consistently get that kind of 2 wins out of every 5, 7 points out of every 15, that kind of thing. And I think eventually they will find themselves in safety.
I think that buzz of getting promoted and the buzz of, like, you could tell that they get the best games were against teams like City and Liverpool. Like there was a definite buzz around the team. We're back with the big boys, and and had massive cracks in those games. But the reality of playing at a higher level week in, week out, at least for this season, has started to show on Leeds.
Yeah, and
There's room for them to
that
go
lady.
up next. I think for the next few years they'll consolidate. But I think this season, if they called the season off now, Leeds would be quite happy.
I just want to get this lady's name correct. Karen Carney. Did you hear about the Karen Carney thing? And she made a comment about Leeds, basically saying that if it wasn't for COVID, i.e., if it wasn't for a break in the season now, not because of the virus, that they wouldn't have got promoted. And what the point she was trying to make, and I think she got unfairly dragged through the mud, very unfairly. She had to delete a Twitter account and stuff like that because she got a lot of sexist abuse. But she made a really good point. And
is she like a pundit or?
Yeah, so she spoke after a specific. I think it was the 6. No, it wasn't the 6-1 game. It was a bit after that. But she basically said that Leicester will burn out, and she got dragged through the mud online, and people were making these very sexist comments. Get back in the kitchen, that kind of horrible comments. But she made the point.
We talked a bit about racism here, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, and same bloody thing, man. Can't control being a woman, can you? Karen Carney. Sorry, excuse me. So she's a pundit. I feel she's an ex-footballer as well. She is an ex-footballer, yes. Anyway, so she said Leicester will burn out, and I don't think they're burning out. I don't think they're burning out. I just think they are finding the pace to the way they want to play. They cannot maintain that with the pace of the Premier League. Now, the Championship is, in my opinion, top 5 to 7 leagues in the world for quality. It is an amazing league, but it's just not the Premier League. I'm talking about for quality. So Championship, yeah.
Oh, Championship. Sorry, I thought you said Premiership.
Yeah, Championship. Yeah, I mean, you can go through the big leagues in Europe, and then they'd be the best second best league in the world.
The Championship is the 4th highest attended football league in the world.
Yeah,
more people go to a Championship game than a Serie A game on average.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just think that it's just that little bit that they're missing. But I think they're definitely going to be safe. The next season they build upon that. I think in a few seasons' time they will definitely be thinking about Europe. The type of acquisitions they can make, there's no doubt that they'll be in amongst Europe in about 2 or 3 years' time. But look, I think this game, Leicester's is going to continue their form. You're going to see a couple of goals, a 3-1 win, and the Foxes go marching on. What about you?
I had 3-0. Yeah, same sort of thing. Leeds need to find some sort of solution to, like you're saying, Leicester or Greens. I was seeing a few Reds on Leeds, sorry. So I was thinking that, they need to find something to jolt them. Like that COVID break that she's talking about it. I didn't hear the whole comment, so I'm not going to say that she's right, but I will say this, she's not wrong.
No. You can be, but that's the thing, Sham. You can be wrong. You can be absolutely wrong. But I don't want to get into it because it's the same with the Twanzebe thing, but dragging through the mud over someone is just, I hate that kind of stuff. Okay, on a happier note, we got a big set of fixtures, the usual kind of 10 games. I want a player. I want a game to watch, a player to watch, and any kind of closing thoughts.
Game to watch. I've gone for West Ham Liverpool. I think, like I said, it's going to be an absolute cracker. I think the way that Liverpool set up is going to be quite important. I wanted to see more out of Mane, and he did really well against Tottenham. Actually, he played very well. Alexander-Arnold showed glimpses as well. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it on that. I'm going to put it on Robertson. I think that he's got something in him for Liverpool. I think he's the player for me just to keep an eye on this round. We don't talk a lot about him, but his output is always there.
He's the most anti-West Ham player. You know he's going to be up for it. You know he's that guy. He's the Roy Keane of Liverpool almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with my same guys I'd had in midweek. I think if Martin Odegaard starts, I think you're going to see something special. Win or lose, I think you're going to see a special player.
I was just seeing this morning that you know how like Arsenal had it's like a 7-minute video of their training session. He backheels an assist in training.
I haven't seen it.
It was just like free. Like it came to him and it just came down. He just backheels it and the guy runs in and scores. He's like, oh god, first training session, backheeling.
Coached by Zidane, played with Ronaldo, assisted by Benzema in training. I mean, this guy's seen it all, man. You know, and he played with.
And he's 23. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I will say though, I can't get away from the fact that I think the West Ham Liverpool game is going to be huge, and I do think Liverpool's going to win it. I think he's going to kickstart this season again after their kind of 7-game dip in form. Any closing thoughts, Sean?
No. I think that if you look through some of the other games, I think Villa's got it over Southampton. I think that.
Let's do that. Sorry. Yeah.
And I think Manchester City 5-0. I see that happening.
It's
Um,
the weekly prediction. It's 5-0 Man
yeah,
City.
absolutely. And then Chelsea got Burnley as well. That'll be a very important match. Burnley got something
Yeah.
about them at the moment. They're beating Liverpool and Villa, and they're now going to Stamford Bridge. That could I reckon they could nick a point there.
I'd like to make a point here on the record. I generally believe that if any manager has had an agenda against them from the start, it's Tuchel. Whether you like it, whether he likes it or not, I think Tuchel will always have an as from his own fans and from the kind of pro Chelsea media, if there are any pro Chelsea media, will always
Because he's the one replacing Lampard.
Replacing Lampard in what a lot of Chelsea fans believe a very unjust way. I think he's going to have a tough time if he doesn't produce it quick, and he needs to produce results.
Do you think that because my impression of hearing a lot of this stuff about Lampard being sacked is, well, you know, like it's ruthless, but it's kind of like, well, Frank, that's what you sign up for. You know what I mean? Like you sign up to join a ruthless club under a ruthless manager, and yeah, you played there for a while, but don't expect any sympathy because you're Frank Lampard. Like that seems to be the sentiment that I'm getting, as opposed to how could a Roman have sacked Frank?
Well, I think he was made promises that weren't kept. That's the impression I get. Why are you hiring Frank Lampard if you expect Ancelotti-esque performances, Mourinho-esque performances? Why wasn't why wasn't a manager pried away from his job a year ago and instead he put Frank Lampard? Look, he's.
Definitely
My point being I don't think Thomas.
I thought he did very well last season, but the expectations went up when they spent £20 million. No one else did anything, and he
working
has
for a business
up with that.
So even winning the title doesn't save you. Look at Ancelotti; he won the title in the FA Cup
winning the Champions League.
Fell short the second season, and look, my point is I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's a very good manager. In fact, I think he could be the key to unlocking Pulisic burner habits. It could be very, very deadly through you up front. But my point is, if results turn bad, if he doesn't go to Burnley and get a result, you're gonna hear unreasonable rumblings of this guy's shit. Never meant to be, blah blah blah. Anyway, on that note, it is going to be a huge round of fixtures. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game, and I hope United do the business, man. I really hope so. Always pleasure to chat, Sham. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We are the 5-Yard Pass podcast. My name is Suddy. This is Sham. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep football simple, and as always,
keep passing.